Welcome, my friends, to AIPodcastListening.com to learn the good, the bad, and the ugly of AI from the voices of reason at our free AISupercampus.com. My AI co-hosts will begin by introducing MikesAI. 2-minute notes on today's topic to help you quickly decide if it's reasonable for you to stay tuned for a deeper dive into the rest of the podcast about the rising tide of the waves of AI. Let's dive in.
All right, Google's new AI, Gemini 3.0, is here. Let's break down what's inside. Google says it's a massive leap, but what's really different this time around? Okay, first up, the raw power. What makes this thing so much smarter than before? Basically, it's just better at everything. But the big new skill here is something called tool calling. So it can use other apps like search to get you better, more accurate information. It's a fact checker. Cool tech, right? But what does this actually mean for you when you're using it? Well, things like brainstorming or writing just feel smoother. It's more reliable, more helpful. And this is already huge. We're talking 650 million people using the app every month. People are making fun stuff with it, sure, but they're also using it for serious research. Now, it's not just for everyday stuff. This is a big deal for coders and scientists, too. Google also dropped Anti-Gravity. It's basically an AI sidekick for professional software developers. So, you've got Anti-Gravity for the pros and AI Studio for more casual developers. Simple. For scientists, this new reliability is a total game changer for analyzing complex research and data. So what's the big picture here? Well, it's way more than just a chatbot. They're aiming for something they call a universal assistant, and Gemini is the brains behind it. An AI that's everywhere you are, on all your devices, connected to all your tools. The end goal here? To give us our time and attention back for the things that matter. Which leaves us with a big question. Could AI actually be the thing that gives us our time back?
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we have a pretty critical mission. We are going deep into the recent launch of Google's flagship AI model, Gemini 3rd.
Or 3.0, yeah.
Right, 3.0.
Yeah.
And not just the model, but the entire suite of tools that are designed to, put that intelligence to work.
That's it. And the source material we've got it's really like an X-ray view into the thinking inside Google.
So this isn't just a press release.
No, not at all. It's about understanding the core engineering choices they made, the leap from the last generation, Gemini 2.5, to this one. And Gemini the 3rd, it really represents a significant maturation.
A maturation.
Yeah, for the whole Gemini family. The internal teams are even positioning this as the start of the Gemini 3 era.
Okay, so a whole new era. What does that actually mean?
It's a period that promises this big across-the-board performance increase, but with a very heavy focus on reliability and deep system integration.
Right. So our mission today is really to get past the hype and find the tangible benefits.
Mm-hmm.
We really need to unpack why this launch matters specifically to you, the listener. Whether you're a power user, using it for creative stuff, or a pro developer building the next big app, we're going to pull out the concrete improvements and connect them to Google's, their very ambitious long-term vision.
The universal assistant.
Exactly. The idea of a truly universal assistant.
And that idea, that universality, it really hinges on two things. It needs foundational intelligence, of course, but also unparalleled connection.
Connection to what?
To the whole Google ecosystem. We're going to explore how they plan to double down on context and memory by plugging into Gmail, Maps, Calendar, and also how they're tackling the massive engineering challenges of just scaling these incredibly powerful and expensive models.
It sounds like a pretty challenging roadmap they're on.
Oh, it is. It's exciting, but definitely not easy.
Okay, let's just dive right in and unpack that. The foundational claim for Gemini with the 3rd is it's pretty bold. It's being called the most intelligent flagship model that Google has ever released.
Yeah.
But, intelligence is kind of an abstract word. When we look at the benchmarks, the internal tests, what does that actually translate to? What are the performance metrics that you can actually feel as a user?
It translates into systemic measurable gains pretty much everywhere. The sources we have confirm you can see these performance increases in the usual places like reasoning and creativity.
Okay.
But the real engineering breakthrough, the big leap from 2.5, is in two areas that are really connected. Improved tool calling and just overall reliability.
So it's not just a small bump in one test.
No, it's a broad advancement. The mandate for the 3.0 leap, it seems, was reliability, reliability, reliability.
And what's the focus of that reliability?
It's all about perfecting the use of external tools. We've all had that experience, right? You're using an LLM and it hallucinates, or maybe even more frustrating, it just fails to connect to search or some other resource it needs.
Oh, yeah. And when that connection fails, the whole task just falls apart.
Absolutely. Think about it. A model's reasoning is only as good as its input. So if the model can reliably figure out when it needs to look outside its own knowledge and then how to actually call that external system, its entire reasoning capacity just gets better instantly.
And that's not just for coding, right?
Not at all. It's crucial for coding, for sure, but it's also key for just general real-world reasoning. This shift from 2.5 to 3.0 was a really hard focus on turning a good model into a truly dependable system.
Okay, so that's the technical side. But here's what I found really interesting for the user who, isn't writing code. The sources talk a lot about a significant stylistic upgrade.
Yes. This is a fascinating piece of, behavioral engineering.
What do they mean by that?
The internal tests showed the model is now more succinct, more to the point, and generally more helpful. You know how sometimes you interact with a really smart AI, but it sounds like an overly wordy grad student?
I know exactly what you mean. The answer is technically correct, but it's buried in all this flowery language.
Exactly. Gemini 3 seems to have really optimized for clarity and for being concise.
I can definitely relate to that frustration. You ask an older model to summarize, say, 3 articles, and it feels like it has to give you an introduction, then a summary of each, then a final synthesis, and then a polite sign-off. It's exhausting.
Right. The sources suggest that with 3.0, a lot of that verbosity has been trimmed way back. And the most telling piece of data from their internal tests was that people didn't just rate the answers as more accurate. They reported that they enjoy using this model even more.
That's a huge deal. Enjoy.
It is. That subjective enjoyment, that's the sign of a great product experience. It suggests they've kind of cracked the code on making the model feel less like a passive algorithm and more like a genuinely helpful, high-performing coworker.
So for the non-developer, the person using Gemini to brainstorm or draft an email, this means the model should feel better in, 3 ways? Smarter, more reliable?
Because of those better external connections, yeah.
And stylistically improved. So the output you get needs a lot less editing and just feels more polished right from the start.
Precisely. And you see, that stylistic improvement is a direct result of the technical breakthroughs.
How so?
Well, under the hood, that improved reliability of tool calling, it means the model is getting better, more up-to-date information. That makes it more confident, more accurate. So the user might not know the term tool calling, but they absolutely notice that the system isn't confidently telling them something that's 6 months out of date anymore.
So it seems like the big takeaway here is that Google has really worked to fuse that high-level intelligence with the practical, reliable execution you need for daily tasks.
They're aiming for that sweet spot, where accuracy meets usability. The overall feeling for a general user in the Gemini app should just be that the system is much more capable and more pleasant to work with.
And in this market, pleasant and reliable are probably the things that actually drive user growth.
They're the key differentiators, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, let's transition now. We've talked about the current performance of Gemini 3. Let's look at the strategic roadmap that really defines this Gemini 3 era.
Okay.
This era seems to be all about aggressive pushes into context, personalization, and, the thing every user always asks for, memory.
This is the strategic core. This is where it gets really interesting.
And this is where Google's scale and its ecosystem advantage, they just become impossible to ignore.
They really do. The internal documents confirm it. Personalization, memory, and long-term context are foundational focuses now. They're doubling down because they know a truly assistant-like AI has to remember you. It has to know what you're working on, what you like, session after session.
And this is where Google's vertical integration is just a massive leg up.
It's the critical difference. Unlike their competitors, Google owns the ecosystem that holds so much of a user's life context.
Gmail, Calendar, Maps.
Exactly. The system is being designed to connect right into Gmail, Calendar, Maps, YouTube. So when you ask Gemini to, say, draft a scheduling email, the model can reliably connect to the calendar tool and check your availability in real time.
And that's enabled by the better tool calling we just discussed.
It's the key. It's not just about having access. It's about the reliable tool calling. Gemini 3 has the dependability it needs to connect to these really high-stakes personal services without making critical mistakes.
That sounds incredible. But it immediately brings up a huge question for me around trust and privacy.
Of course.
If I'm giving a model my calendar and my email to create this deep memory, I need absolute rock-solid assurance about reliability and security. Do the sources talk about how they're managing that?
It's an essential challenge, and yeah, they stress that trust is paramount. They don't get into the granular encryption details, but they emphasize that the main thing holding them back from releasing real memory features is making sure the system is polished and reliable enough.
So they're dogfooding it internally.
Extensively. They're prioritizing trust over just rushing features out. They know that if a memory feature failed, or worse, exposed incorrect personal data, user trust would just evaporate instantly.
So it sounds like they're being very careful.
Very. It suggests they're building really strong governed APIs between the model and your personal data, making sure the model only gets what it needs for the task, all mediated by robust security layers.
That reliability challenge, it seems to be the constraint on everything. Let's talk about the practical side of serving these huge models. If Gemini the Third is so much more capable, it must be way more expensive to run.
Vastly more, yeah.
So how is Google actually going to deliver this to hundreds of millions of people at the same time?
This gets into a really deep engineering problem, serving efficiency. To serve models at Google's scale, and we'll get to their user numbers in a bit, they're developing more efficient versions of the model. They call them flash versions.
A flash version. What does that mean?
Think of it like a specialized optimization. It's all about speed and reducing the resources needed, but without a big drop in quality.
How do they do that?
It involves really sophisticated techniques, things like quantization, where you reduce the precision of the model's weights, or methods to manage something called activation sparsity. Essentially, they're making smaller, leaner versions of Gemini the Third that can run on much cheaper hardware.
And that lets them serve it globally with low latency.
It's the only way. It's the only way you can meet that kind of global demand.
That explains the average user. But the sources also mention these super specialized, expensive models like Genie or DeepThink. How do those fit in if they're too expensive to deploy for everyone?
And that just highlights the trade-off, the compute constraint. Models like Genie are just too expensive right now in terms of power draw and raw GPU time to serve at mass scale for every single user.
And DeepThink.
Same story. The DeepThink models, which are probably their peak capability in very specific areas, they're reserved for the ultra tier or for special internal use. This isn't them hoarding the good stuff. It's a physical economic constraint.
Right. It's not just about having enough GPUs. It's about the cost and power to run a query for 650 million people.
Exactly. The cost per query for some of these features is just astronomical right now. So the whole optimization effort is about driving that cost down until it's viable for everyone.
So it's a constant loop. Breakthrough innovation, then relentless optimization for efficiency.
That's the game. Innovate the next leap, then engineer the cost down so you can actually give it to people.
Okay, let's move on to multimodality. This has always been one of Gemini's big strengths, right? Understanding text, images, video all at once.
That historic strength, yeah.
How does Gemini the Third push that forward?
The phrase they use is it will up-level all of that. So you're going to see improved multimodal reasoning plugged right into platforms like YouTube AI Studio. Imagine asking the model to analyze a complex video tutorial for you.
It takes the AI out of just a text box.
It moves it into the real world. And the sources even had this fun, specific data point to show how popular this is. The term Nana Banana was a big driver of usage in the Gemini app.
Nana Banana? What on earth is that?
It's a wonderfully whimsical example, but it makes a profound point.
Okay.
Nana Banana is basically shorthand for users generating visual content that's creative, personal, often a bit weird. It's probably related to making funny images, memes, custom art. It's the kind of low-stakes, high-volume use that really stress tests the model's ability to handle creative and slightly absurd requests.
But why is that important? Why spend engineering time on Nana Banana when you're trying to, solve medical problems?
Because that capability scales up. The ability to interpret a nuanced kind of abstract request for a comic strip is directly related to the ability to analyze a subtle pattern in a medical image or interpret a complex chart in a research paper. These trivial uses pushed the boundaries, and every improvement learned from mass consumer use feeds right back into the reliability you need for the high-stakes stuff.
That makes sense. The fun stuff builds the muscle for the serious stuff.
Exactly. Health and science are inherently multimodal.
Okay, we've established that Gemini the Third has this foundational intelligence and reliability. Now let's pivot to how Google is packaging all that power specifically for the professional user. We're talking about the launch of anti-gravity.
Right.
And this sounds like a lot more than just the next version of code completion.
Oh, it is. That's absolutely correct. Anti-gravity is not being positioned as just, an improvement on your IDE. It's defined as a new agentic development platform.
Agentic, so it can make decisions and take actions on its own.
That's the core idea. The intent is to completely redefine the developer experience by giving them an AI coworker that can handle autonomous multi-step tasks.
And how does that work across a developer's environment? What's the real differentiator here?
Well, its functionality lets this AI coworker operate across the three main pillars of a developer's workflow: the editor, where you write code, the terminal, where you run commands, and the browser for documentation and APIs.
That's the key, that it crosses all three.
It is. The differentiator is the shift from a reactive AI, where you type and it suggests, to a proactive, goal-oriented AI. They are trying to reimagine the IDE from an agent-first perspective.
Okay, let's make that concrete. Walk me through a complex task a professional coder could give anti-gravity that current tools just can't handle.
Okay, sure. Imagine a pro coder needs to update a microservice. They might give anti-gravity a single high-level command, something like spin up a new authentication microservice in Go.
Okay.
Make sure it follows our company's latest security protocols, which are on the wiki, then integrate it into the CI/CD pipeline and update the React-M to reflect the new API endpoints.
Wow. That's 4 or 5 complex steps that cross different tools.
Exactly. An agentic platform like anti-gravity, using Gemini 3/3's reliability, would then autonomously do all of that. It would generate the Go code in the editor,
Right.
scan the internal wiki in the browser for the security rules and apply them, use the terminal to run tests, and then finally update the documentation. It might even commit the changes to Git if everything passes.
That is a world away from what the sources call vibe coding.
It is, and we should probably clarify vibe coding for everyone.
Yeah, good idea.
Vibe coding is basically the generative coding we see today for more casual developers. You're writing a simple function, the AI suggests the rest of the line. It's useful, for sure, but it doesn't have the deep context or security awareness or the multi-step execution you need for a big enterprise environment.
So anti-gravity is built for that complexity.
Explicitly, it's designed to handle the multifaceted job of a professional software engineer, where reliability and security are absolutely non-negotiable.
So if AI Studio is the playground for the hobbyist or the prosumer, anti-gravity is born for that elite, high-stakes environment where a bad integration could cost a company real money.
That is the clear line they're drawing, and it's why the expertise of the X-Windsurf team is highlighted here.
Who are they?
They're an internal group that's all about pushing the boundaries of future development tools. They know the pain points of scaling engineering workflows inside and out.
So what's the status of anti-gravity right now?
It's deep in internal use, and the sources say they're seeing impressive productivity gains, which is the crucial first step. You have to prove this actually saves time and doesn't just create new problems.
Right.
But the teams are pretty grounded about it. They're acknowledging this is just the first attempt at defining this professional roadmap. They fully expect it to iterate and evolve as the Gemini models get even smarter.
So anti-gravity is less of a finished product and more of an adaptable surface, built to grow as Gemini's intelligence grows.
That's the strategic imperative. Google knows if you build the world's most capable AI, but you don't give professionals a high-leverage way to use it in their daily workflow, you've wasted your advantage. Anti-gravity is the mechanism to capture that professional leverage.
All right, let's move to the broader strategic view. We need to talk about the speed of integration, what we're calling the Google flywheel. DeepMind is clearly the engine room for the whole company.
It is, yeah.
And that speed seems to be picking up with Gemini 3.
It's accelerating dramatically. DeepMind's role is explicit. It is the engine room of Google, and its mission is to get its breakthroughs plugged into all the product areas, search, maps, workspace, Android, everything, and power up every big product.
And this push for rapid integration, this SIM shipping, is a lesson they learned, right?
A massive organizational lesson learned from the previous Gemini generation.
What was the lesson from the 2.5 rollout?
They realized that time to integration is everything. If you launch a breakthrough model, but it takes 6 months for its best features to show up in the products people actually use every day, you just lose momentum.
And the competitive edge.
Exactly. With Gemini 3.0, the integration with Google Search and its AI mode was prioritized and done with exceptional speed. Search is meant to be the poster child for how quickly they want to roll out these capabilities everywhere.
Across Maps, YouTube, Workspace.
All of it. They want to replicate that speed across the board.
And that speed means the capabilities are getting to users fast. And speaking of users, You have to mention the milestone. The Gemini app has hit a staggering 650 million monthly active users.
It's a phenomenal scale.
650 million people using it at least once a month.
And that scale generates a huge amount of data about real-world use. The sources confirm that a key driver for this massive user base isn't just text chat. It's the app's excellence at multimodal tasks. It's highly visual and creative.
Okay, so if it's not just coding, what are the killer non-coding multimodal uses that are driving this huge base?
We get some really great examples, things like planning elaborate surprise birthday party invites, which involves, guest lists, themes, drafting copy.
I can see that.
Or making complex little figurines in certain territories, which shows off some high-fidelity 3D generation, generating visuals for academic posters, creating comics.
These are all tasks that require understanding input in multiple formats and then outputting something visual.
Right. And the sources say a personal favorite use case internally is brainstorming, meaning projects, sense-checking ideas.
That's an interesting use of multimodality.
It is, because good brainstorming requires synthesis. If I asked Gemini to help me name a new project, I might give it a technical diagram, a team mission statement, and a list of names to avoid.
So it's analyzing a visual, reading text,
and combining them for a creative output. It shows Gemini is being used not just for execution, but for deep synthetic ideation.
Okay, let's pivot now to the highest stakes applications of all. Health and education.
The big ones.
The material says Gemini 3 is going to be the foundational stone for bringing these advanced, specialized internal science projects into the mainstream. And that requires just unprecedented reliability.
Indeed. This is the ultimate test of their work on reliability. They're looking to take these specialized projects like internal co-scientist tools for researchers and the Amy medical diagnostic system and bring them into the core Gemini framework.
What's the long-term goal there?
The goal is to have a Gemini system that is the trusted assistant that scientists and medical professionals use every single day to do research and riff on complex ideas.
And why is Gemini 3 specifically the key to enabling this?
It goes back to that core breakthrough: enhanced reasoning and a reliable tool calling. In science, every statement has to be verifiable. Gemini 3's capabilities should significantly improve reliability in things like generating accurate citations, cross-referencing findings, and understanding dense academic literature.
So if a previous model messed up citations or misread a data table, it was basically useless for science.
Useless! Gemini 3 aims to solve that problem.
And these fields are inherently multimodal, just like the creative examples.
Absolutely. Think about medical diagnostics.
Yeah.
A system has to analyze an X-ray or an MRI diagnostic image and also interpret complex figures and tables in a research paper or a patient's history. A text-only model is a non-starter.
I see.
Gemini's multimodal strength is essential for that kind of clinical synthesis. Same for education. A student might need help laying out a physics poster, generating both the text and the necessary technical diagrams.
This ambition, though, it extends to proactive and preventative healthcare, which must raise huge regulatory hurdles.
Massive ones. The science and health teams are explicitly looking at that. Proactive, preventative, medical-grade applications. But they are also incredibly mindful that this requires additional approvals and regulatory checks and balances.
So the message is, the current Gemini app is not a doctor.
The internal message is crystal clear. It is not a medical-grade diagnostic tool. You must still consult a doctor. The path to clinical use is long, and it's governed by safety.
But even with those hurdles, the potential societal impact, especially in underserved areas, is enormous.
This is probably the most meaningful long-term goal of all. The sources talk about the potential for Gemini, distributed through Android, to provide a foundational level of care and knowledge in parts of the world that just lack basic primary healthcare.
It could be transformative.
Even if it's not fully medical grade, a reliable AI assistant could provide early knowledge, educational guidance, and triage assistance to millions.
So Gemini 3 is a vital step forward. It increases the baseline reliability you need for these critical applications. But the journey to becoming a doctor's assistant is still a long one.
It's a strong foundation stone, but they are explicit. More levels of reliability and reasoning are needed. The research is heavy and ongoing, but they're driven by the knowledge that these systems, when they're reliable enough, can fundamentally change global health and education.
We've covered a lot: the current intelligence, the scaling challenges, professional tools like anti-gravity, and these ambitious high-stakes integrations. Now let's just zoom all the way out to the ultimate goal that connects all of this together: the universal assistant.
the grand vision.
Exactly.
This is the unifying idea. The universal assistant is a future, highly evolved version of Gemini. It's conceived to be useful in, and this sounds crazy, but in every single moment of a person's life. It has to work flawlessly for productivity and for leisure, blurring those lines.
What does blurring the boundaries mean in practice?
It means it handles all your mandatory tasks, scheduling, drafting, summarizing with total efficiency. That's the great assistant for productivity. But at the same time, it excels in your leisure time. It's proactively recommending a cool restaurant because it saw a photo you took last week. It's riffing with you on a complex hobby. It needs to have contextual depth, not just be a data cruncher.
And that kind of contextual depth demands it be everywhere, on every device.
Exactly. Ubiquity. It has to operate seamlessly across your computer, your phone, your browser, and even newer things like smart glasses. To be universal, it needs a highly capable, multimodal base model like Gemini that can understand the digital world of your emails, but also the physical world, what you're looking at, where you are on a map.
And this all comes back to those reliable external connections.
It all circles back. The ability to use Maps, Workspace, and developer tools reliably is the foundation.
But if the goal is truly universal, it can't just be the Google ecosystem forever, can it?
That's the ultimate vision of freedom, yes. The end goal is for the assistant to be fully general, to be able to call any tool, not just Google's. Imagine an assistant that manages your digital life, even if you're using a competitor's CRM. That's true agentic generalization.
This is starting to get into the philosophical impact of the tech. If this digital coworker handles all the mandatory stuff, the administrative load of modern life, what's the intended outcome for us, for humans?
The desired outcome is, well, it's profound. It's about giving people back their two most valuable, non-renewable resources, their time, and even more importantly, their attention space.
Their attention space.
We are all constantly being pulled away by administrative overhead. We spend our cognitive energy on these low-reward tasks, sorting emails, scheduling meetings. The universal assistant is designed to handle all that background noise, to free up your cognitive load.
So the goal isn't just to make us more efficient. It's about cognitive liberation.
Precisely. It's about allowing you to dedicate your recovered time, and more importantly, your refreshed attention, to the things that actually matter to you. Deep creative work, spending time with family, learning a new language. That's the ultimate disruptive potential of this vision, transforming the quality of human focus by outsourcing the mandatory digital burden.
Well, that was an expansive and a very detailed deep dive into the Gemini 3 era. To just summarize the journey we took, we started with Gemini 3's foundational performance, the big improvements in reliability and style, making the model more accurate and, frankly, just more pleasant to use.
We then connected that reliability to their strategic roadmap, the big focus on memory and context, and tackling the massive engineering challenges of scale, like the flash versions they need to serve 650 million monthly users. We also saw how that multimodal success, from creative things like comics to analytics, is really the engine of the app's growth.
And we got into the weeds on the new developer platform, Anti-Gravity, designed as a truly agentic AI coworker for the professional coder. We contrasted that sophisticated execution with simpler vibe coding. And finally, we explored that high-stakes ambition of making Gemini the foundation for systems in health and education, all powered by that rapid integration flywheel across the whole Google ecosystem.
Yeah, and it's clear that every single technical improvement, from better tool calling to more efficiency, it's all marching towards that one single defining vision, the universal assistant, a partner that operates everywhere, across every device, and promises to give us back our most precious resource, our attention.
So we'll leave you with this final provocative thought. It's one that really encapsulates the promise of this whole era. If the universal assistant successfully handled most of the mandatory administrative, cognitive, and logistical tasks for you, what new skill or passion one that currently feels impossible because you just don't have the time or attention would you finally dedicate your recovered focus to?
Think about that. What would you choose to do with your liberated attention space?
That is a powerful question to end on. Thank you for joining us for the deep dive.